Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for the investment of your time this morning. My name's Simon Martindale. I'm the marketing manager here at 360 Solutions. We should be together for around half an hour or so, and I'm going to give you an overview of Skype for Business, something that's been swelling in interest amongst our customer base over the last 5 to 6 years, where we've seen a big transition from traditional telephony and traditional call handling over to Skype for Business, as people look to make much more of voice in the working environment than just delivering telephony to the desktop. So Skype for Business, firstly, it always generates a lot of interest and a lot of questions, and the people that we have listening to us, they're always at differing stages or differing situations. Some of them may have already migrated to Office 365 or be considering a migration to Office 365 and therefore considering how Skype for Business could fit in. Some of them may already be using Skype for Business to some extent for instant messaging and file sharing, but no more than that. Some people have used Skype in the domestic environment and are interested to see how Skype for Business compares. But for many, and the majority of organisations, they're operating with old-style telephony, making and receiving phone calls, and want to do a lot more. Okay, so before I get into the detail on what it does and how it works, etc., the best way to familiarise yourself with Skype for Business is to actually try it, okay? And we have two ways of doing that. We've created our own instance via Office 365. We can, for anybody who's interested in having a go, we can dispatch a headset overnight, set you up with a dummy instance in our cloud-based portal, and what that gives you is the opportunity to try setting up and hosting a conference, sending and receiving instant messages, and making and receiving phone calls, accessing voicemail, etc., through a dummy instance. So you'd be given a pretend email address working off our pretend company profile. So it's a great way of trialing the product, familiarising yourself with some of the features without it interfacing with your existing working environment. The other scenario that we've done for anybody who's interested in trialing the full functionality of Skype for Business in their own environment is to set up a confined proof of concept. In that instance, you can have some users on Skype for Business and some on your existing phone system. Those users can dial internally between each other, no different. However, the Skype users get the full benefit of the Skype for Business experience, and that's often what we've done for companies who have in-house IT teams who are interested in rolling out Skype for Business but want to explore it properly in their own environment before they do so. Okay, so that offer is open to anybody on the call. So if anybody is interested in a trial through Office 365, simply drop me a line after the call. We'll ship you a headset, send you some instructions on how to download the client, and you'll be absolutely away making and receiving phone calls. Okay, so what's driving the growth of Skype for Business? Obviously, it's the ability to work anywhere on any device across voice or visual presentations, such as that you're seeing today. And the reality is that many traditional telephony providers or many old-style deliverers of telephony services, they make that promise, but the reality is the complexity of licensing, firewall configurations, etc., make that promise very often difficult to deliver on. Okay, so the whole premise of Skype for Business is to consolidate the office environment, the desktop environment, and integrate it with telephony. So you get full integration with Office applications. So natively from within Word or Excel, you're able to transfer a file immediately to a colleague via instant message who's able to view that document. You can push and share control of your desktop at any time. So if you have users across multiple sites that are collaborating on a document, they're able to do so and share control and make changes in real time. You're obviously able to set up one-to-one or group chats. So you could create a chat room, for example, or a chat group for a particular department, accounts, etc. Push a note out to the chat group, and everybody who's affiliated to that chat group would immediately get the instant message. The instant message client can be controlled, so it is unique to your own organization. So in that instance, only internal people can share instant messages and files between each other. Or you can activate what Microsoft call Open Federation. And what that means is any Skype for Business user will be able to share instant messages with your own staff, etc. That's often popular if you want to liaise quickly with suppliers or customers. That's how we use it internally. And once you've connected for the first time, you can share instant messages in real time and work as if they were internal to your own organization. So video conferencing. So within the Skype for Business suite, obviously on any video enabled device, you're able to share peer-to-peer video calls between yourself and any other Skype for Business user. Unfortunately, I've got a face for radio, so you're lucky you're not seeing me this morning. But if I wanted to, I could just click video now, and you'd be able to see me. Now, within the video conferencing suite, there's a couple of options for you. You can confine video to, firstly, you don't have to allow users to use video. Secondly, your desktop users who have video enabled devices, they could conduct video calls between each other. Or the third option is if you have in-house video conferencing systems, then Skype for Business will interface with the likes of the more modern Polycom or other video conferencing platforms. So a Skype user from home or working remotely on a video enabled device could connect with the room-based video conferencing system, and you could hold a multi-party or a peer-to-peer call natively between the video conferencing system and the end user. So next is audio conferencing. So very much as we're holding this morning, once set up and configured, regardless of whether through Office 365 or via a server-based installation, then each user will have the opportunity to set up and host a Skype meeting from their Outlook calendar. When they initiate that invitation, that request comes with the ability to connect into the meeting, such as you've done this morning, and it also comes with a unique dial-in and a PIN number, and access to local rate dial-ins for anybody who has users who are connecting in internationally. What that service allows you to do is replace any existing conferencing service that you may use, such as the BT MeetMe, Cisco WebEx, or Powwow Now type services. And then from within that audio conference, you can obviously extend the conference out and present visually, such as I'm doing this morning. And as I go through, I'll show you some of the annotation features that you get when you're delivering a PowerPoint presentation, etc. So next, telephony and voicemail. So for telephony and voicemail, when you have Skype for Business enabled for telephony, then you clearly have the choice of working with a headset. So I'm talking you through a headset this morning connected through my laptop, or a physical device. The client on the PC will allow you to dial in a phone number, click dial, and it will either trigger an outbound call from the physical handset or the headset that you have interfaced with your Skype for Business client. Voicemail is delivered natively into Exchange, so every time you have a voicemail message, it delivers an email into your Outlook mailbox. And you also have the option to access voicemail from within the little instant messaging window that I'll show you in a second. So all those services effectively are being consolidated into one tool, into one client, is the whole value of Skype for Business. Okay, so against that backdrop, there are, I guess, three different ways in which you could use the product. So for anybody who has a telephony platform that they're happy with, that they recently invested in, then you may want to consider, you may already have access, you may already be using Skype for Business for instant messaging and file sharing, in which case you get the PC client that you can see on the slide there, with no interface at all with your telephony platform. And you may already have access to that through your existing Microsoft licensing at no cost. In that scenario, you can do all the things like file sharing and desktop sharing between your users. However, it will be limited to internally within your own organization, and you'll have no telephony functionality or breakout at all. The next scenario is, okay, you have a telephony platform that's either new or you don't want to replace today, but you are interested in using Skype for Business as I'm delivering now as a conferencing service, in which case, depending on whether you're in Office 365 or not, we would configure your instance, your Skype for Business instance, so it's able to break out to the telephone network. Make sure that you have the correct associated Microsoft licenses to allow you to do that. Make sure that you can break out to the telephone network via an interconnecting device that's called a gateway, and that you have enough capacity to cope with the number of people that you're likely to hold on a conference at any one time. And then when you have that, each of your users who's licensed correctly would be able to do exactly what I'm doing today and present to you, and also users would be able to connect in remotely or simply hold an audio conference with a unique pin at any time. And then the third sort of extension, if you like, is for anybody who's frustrated with their telephony platform today, or who thinks that it makes much more sense, as many of our customers have said to us over recent times, where it makes much more sense. They're already using the instant messaging client to integrate that with telephony. In that case, as you can see on the little client to my on the left, from within the instant messaging window, you have the ability to click a phone icon and it will trigger a call either internally or externally. You have access to a soft client which pops a little keypad on the screen, and you can dial an outbound number and it would trigger an outbound call from within the Skype client. You can have a physical phone connected and make and receive calls exactly as your users do today. So they just, for anybody who has large batches of people that are reluctant to embrace the technology, or it just may not suit, then they can just continue to have a physical phone and make and receive calls in exactly the same manner as they do today. And obviously in that scenario, then across either a mobile phone or a tablet, or which operates over any of the main operating systems, iOS, Windows or Android, they're able to use the Skype for Business application, which means that from within a client, from within an app that sits on the mobile phone or a tablet, they could log in, and then using the data connection, they could make and receive a phone call either internally or externally using the data connection. What's more, using that application, if you have meetings such as we're delivering today and you need to see content, then you're absolutely able to view the content on the mobile device as well as dial in through the application, which is a unique differentiator compared to some of the other providers that you may see. Okay, so what do we think is sort of fueling this growth? So as well as the need to collaborate from anywhere, there's the announcement from BT that ISDN physical phone lines are being phased out by 2025. As those phone lines are migrated away and people are moving away from physical ISDN lines, that's generating a saving as people migrate to SIP trunks or a cloud-based service, a subscription-based service to operate. That's generating a saving, and you can see here that typically SIP trunking calls cost significantly less than ISDN calls, and that the physical or the line rental for a SIP trunk is half the cost of the ISDN line. And people are using those savings internally as that migration happens to fund the infrastructure that may be delivered, or the increase in licensing costs to deliver all this functionality that I'm talking about to their end users. Okay, so I said earlier, probably for many people on the call, they're either in one of these scenarios at the moment. So either you may be using an old digital phone system, you haven't made the leap to IP telephony today, and you have no inter-office or inter-staff collaboration tools at all. Or you may have morphed into IP telephony with one of the main IP providers like Mitel, Avaya, Cisco or ShoreTel, but you're not using their collaboration tools to any great degree, and therefore migrating to Skype is a natural next step. Or you may be you are using their collaboration tools, but you found the complexity of licensing or the experience for your users as not satisfactory, and therefore you're ready to make the leap to Skype for Business. Now, it is important, if you did want your staff to be able to get access to these collaboration tools and also make and receive calls, just to stress again that the most common question we're asked is, do I need to replace the whole of my phone system in order to be able to run Skype for Business? And the answer to that is no. So you can absolutely have a batch of staff or a single office amongst a network that's fully Skype for Business enabled, and then gradually phase out the reduction of your legacy telephony over a period of time. And for the period of time where you cooperate, your staff can absolutely dial in between each other and work as normal with no disruption in service at all. The next common question we're asked is, do I need to be on Office 365 in order to run Skype for Business? And the answer is absolutely no. Microsoft have recently announced that Skype for Business is going to be integrated in the Office 365 version with their Teams product, which is further going to enrich the experience for people that are looking to collaborate, etc. But you absolutely don't need to be in Office 365 to run Skype for Business. So for many of you, you may still operate with Exchange on premise, and you can absolutely run Skype for Business, a server-based Skype for Business deployment. The only things that we need to make sure that you have in order to enjoy the service are a breakout to the public telephone network, which we would supply, in the correct levels of Microsoft licensing, and then compatible endpoints to make and receive calls, etc. Okay, so let's just look at what you can do in a bit more detail. So firstly, the desktop client. So obviously from the client, the little desktop app that some of you may already be using, it's very similar to the Skype interface that some of you may have used at home. From that icon, you can initiate with either a contact that's internal within your organization or someone who operates externally an instant message. You can push control of your desktop at any time. You can escalate an instant message to a phone call just by clicking the phone icon from the PC at any time. And obviously you can transfer files as and when you see fit, without the need to launch another application, a third-party application. In terms of mobile clients, it obviously works across iOS, Android and Windows platforms. You simply download the application. Once you launch the app on your mobile phone, then you get a very similar experience to that you enjoy on your desktop. So you're able to view content in presentations like I'm seeing this morning. If you wanted to dial a user, you could internally, or send them an instant message from within the app on your mobile device or tablet, or launch an external phone call to the public telephone network. If you're in a location that doesn't have adequate mobile signal, for example, then you could use the app to deliver a phone call as and when you wanted. Okay, I talked a little bit before about interoperability with video conferencing systems. There's a couple of ways of doing it. If you already have video conferencing platforms, you could either create an interface between the Skype users and your video conferencing kit so that users can hold a peer-to-peer video call between a Skype user and a conference meeting room, for example. Or the alternative way, and a common way we're seeing that people do it, are they just set their meeting rooms up as Skype for Business users. They make sure that they've got adequate camera and microphone in the meeting room, and then you can hold a peer-to-peer video call or a multi-party video call with more than one user at any time in seconds. Okay, in terms of phones or endpoints, so there's a few common questions that we're asked. So you can obviously have headsets or IP phones. You need Skype for Business optimized endpoints or phones in order to operate. The most common manufacturers that we work with are Polycom and Yealink, and they include some of the benefits of using, for example, the Polycom suite are that the phones fully integrate with your Exchange calendar. So if you have a pre-booked meeting at a set time, you can simply access the calendar from the screen of your phone and click Meet Now, and you'll automatically be dialed into the conference, which is a neat feature. Likewise, the phone will pop a reminder at the time that the conference is scheduled to begin. We get a couple in terms of telephony. We get regularly asked sort of common questions about whether it can do the common things that you'd associate with a phone system. So in terms of, can I put a call on hold? Can I transfer a call? Can I access voicemail via a PIN? The type of things that you'd expect. Can I mute a call? And you get the full call control experience exactly as you would as if you had a third-party phone system. There's no difference at all. You can have hunt groups or response groups. If any of you have departments that have multiple phones that ring simultaneously, you can absolutely deliver that. Or alternatively, if you have, if you operate at set times of the day and you operate a main number, for example, then we can route calls differently according to the time of the day around your opening hours. I'll talk a bit more later, but in terms of other sort of what I would call traditional telephony features and functionality, if you have receptionists in a building who are fielding the main volume of your calls into your organisation, then those receptionists can operate with a Skype for Business optimized attendant console, and that will allow the receptionist using the Skype client to first of all see staff status, so whether they're busy or on a call, using a specially configured window that uses the same Skype user interface but it's just more user friendly for a receptionist. And then if people are available, they're able to transfer that call to its destination successfully. The next thing we're often asked is, for some businesses, they operate with mini call centers or call handling operations whereby they have real telephony intensive operations that need bespoke reporting, maybe wallboards on the wall looking at call volumes, missed and answered calls in real time, maybe also supervisors logging agents in and out of queues, etc. And you absolutely can have dedicated Skype for Business contact center call handling overlay products. We work with Enghouse Interactive and Anywhere 365 to deliver that, so that your busy telephony intensive departments can continue to operate as they do today. Okay, so why do we think that a lot of people are moving this way? And we've seen a dramatic migration in the last 3 to 4 years. So the first thing is, obviously, it brings, from a telephony point of view, it fully integrates the working environment with telephony, and you get full integration with Office, both in terms of the delivery of voicemail, but also the ability to share documents and collaborate between users quickly and easily. Next is, if you're looking to share content or regularly share content between staff, the refresh rates that you enjoy via Skype for Business, the user experience is much richer than if you use one of the traditional IP telephony providers. Also, the simplicity of licensing. Whilst initially with Skype for Business there's a bit of there's a clarification exercise that we always need to go through as to determine whether you're on Office 365 or Exchange is still on premise. But once we've done that, we simply need to work through which of your users will be making and receiving phone calls and therefore need to be licensed correctly, and then which of your users need to be able to set up and initiate conferences similar to which I'm handling today, and top that license up. And then once that's complete, they're good to go on Skype for Business without any other license add-on. Obviously, you're able to connect externally, so the instant messaging and file sharing and desktop sharing can be limited for anybody who's security conscious to your own organization, or it can also be limited, or it can be opened up to any other Skype for Business or indeed consumer Skype user, where once, as soon as you've connected initially, then you're able to share instant messages and documents whenever you want, basically, provided that you've given centrally, you've enabled that functionality at server level or through Office 365. Obviously, the user experience across devices. So for people who are operating with fleets of regularly flexible or mobile workers who are using mobile devices, firstly, the user experience across those mobile devices is best in Skype for Business. And you're also able to see presentation content from the mobile device, which is fantastic. And lastly and importantly, if anybody is regularly holding video meetings or looking to introduce video, then the ability for Skype to integrate with video conferencing platforms or deliver peer-to-peer video quickly as soon as you have a video enabled device puts it in a league of its own, really. Okay, so the reason, as we said, that people I think have morphed that way are they're either frustrated with the performance of their existing phone system, potentially they're already using Lync, or as was Microsoft Lync, or now Skype for Business, for instant messaging and presence, and therefore to add on telephony is a natural next step. And that's also probably often the case within the public sector, where Microsoft significantly make significantly preferential licensing rates available, and it can often be accessed at little or no cost to overlay telephony, and therefore from a cost point of view it really becomes highly attractive for members of the public sector. Companies can often be spending big amounts of money on web and audio conferencing, and therefore to simply use as a conferencing service as an alternative to BT Meet Me becomes a good option, as well as some of the other traditional benefits like increasing inter-office collaboration, because as soon as you're able to share the contents of your desktop, you obviously eliminate the need for physical. You're able to significantly reduce the amount of inter-office travelling to deliver meetings, as well as obviously the migration to SIP trunking away from ISDN will normally free up an amount of money that could be reinvested in a project such as this, to therefore hopefully make the project as cost neutral as possible. Okay, so it's obviously not for everybody, and there's some important considerations that you need to have when you're considering the Skype for Business. Firstly, where am I in my ISDN to SIP migration, and do I want to tie that into any deployment? The next is how complicated or what is my requirement for telephony, i.e. do I have a department that needs a contact center, a call handling overlay, where possibly they operate with wallboards and dedicated reporting or sophisticated call routing paths, in which case we may need to overlay one of the Skype for Business approved contact center overlays as part of any deployment. Next is, and this is critical really, what is the contractual position with the existing phone system provider? Because it may be that in the first instance you look to introduce Skype for Business as for instant messaging and possibly the conferencing service without touching the phone system in situ, and then at a time where the support agreement on the phone system or the performance of the phone system reaches a point where it makes sense to migrate it away and fully enable Skype, you plot your journey, if you like, you plot your strategy, embed it in, and then plan at the time where you've offset any investment in the legacy phone system, and then plan the migration away. And then lastly, obviously replacing the separate relationships that you may have with any of the BT Meet Me or Powwow Now audio or video conferencing providers of this world. Okay, so how's it deployed? So obviously it can be deployed from the cloud, either in public or private cloud, through Office 365, whereby we would interface an Office 365 instance with an interconnecting appliance, which is called a CCE, which can be hosted by ourselves or you guys, and a device called a PSTN gateway, which links your Skype for Business instance, whether via Office 365 or in private cloud mode, to the public telephone network. Alternatively, we can deploy it on-premise, albeit in virtualized fashion, a set of virtual servers, which, whilst we call it on-premise, obviously that virtual infrastructure could be hosted by ourselves or yourselves if you have virtual infrastructure available. Either are possible, and that's where we need to start to get into the deployment conversation and where you are in terms of any planned migration to 365, etc. In terms of what infrastructure you need, you obviously need the correct Microsoft licenses, and that is where you may need some advice from us. There's a perception that Skype for Business is often free. So Skype for Business instant messaging, you may well be able to, between your staff, access today from within your existing Microsoft licensing agreement, but the likelihood is it will need to be topped up, whether Office 365 or your Exchange environment still resides on premise, with the correct licenses for conferencing if you want users to be able to host conferencing, and then to break out to the telephone network. And we can advise on that. So for anybody who's intimidated by the complexities of Microsoft licensing, we can give the correct advice quickly and easily. We obviously need physical or virtual servers depending on the type of deployment. Will depend on what we put onto those servers and where they're hosted. The PSTN gateway, as I said, which is otherwise known as an SBC, which is the interconnecting device which connects you to the telephone network. And then you need a firewall with SIP and DMZ capabilities to allow us to pass the telephone traffic. Some common questions that we're regularly asked. Can it do call logging or simultaneous ring? So firstly, call logging. Can it be set so that you can have, we have a law firm in Stockport, for example, that has wallboards on the wall for their conveyancing department, monitoring volumes of calls through the course of the day with missed calls, answered calls, etc. It can absolutely log and report on that calling activity through one of the Microsoft preferred product overlays, if you like. In terms of ringing group, you can do all the things you'd associate with the traditional phone system. So have multiple phones ring at the same time in a department, or set rules so that if a certain number isn't picked up within a certain number of rings, calls overflow to another number. That's absolutely no problem. Also, if individual staff members want to set a rule from within the client, they can just log on to the little PC-based client. If they want to forward all their calls to their mobile phone, or set a rule so their mobile phone rings at the same time as their landline, that's absolutely no problem at all. If you want an automatic greeting when people call your main number, something like, thanks for calling, press 1 for service, 2 for sales, etc., then a menu-based navigation system is absolutely no issue at all. Clearly, you can have voicemail and it can be accessed from the Skype client or delivered natively into Exchange. And you can absolutely have a contact center overlay for those departments that have more sophisticated call routing requirements. They may want to integrate more media other than just calls into the call handling operation, for example, email queues or SMS or web chat, or they need some more sophisticated reporting. With an overlay, that's absolutely achievable. Okay, so I'll end as I started, I guess. If people are interested or you want to hear more, the best way to experience it and to trial it is through one of the trials, either via our own instance in Office 365, where we'll set you up with a pretend logon, talk you through the download and provide a headset for you to use at no cost, and you can keep that. Then you'll be able to make and receive calls, conference colleagues, and we have a number of law firms at the moment that are using this service, and they're trialing it between 4 and 5 people internally to simulate the experience. Likewise, if you want a controlled trial within your own environment for a group of users, whereby it genuinely is working off your own email account, etc., then that's absolutely possible with some more detailed scoping. Thanks very much for your patience and listening in. We'll circulate a recording of the session for anybody who's interested in a bit more detail, and maybe try and pick up with you individually to see what additional clarification you may need. So thanks very much, and have a great morning. Thank you.